Hello, and welcome to Fact Schmacks. It's the podcast good enough to get you a C.
Minus.
My name's Matt, and I've got a story to tell.
My name's Kev. I have a story to interrupt. It's not quite how that's going to work today, is it?
No, Kevin, there's been an emergency. There's been the sort of emergency that demands a reaction from two knuckleheads like us.
Oh, yeah. Everybody wants to hear our opinion on this.
There's been an emergency gender reveal.
What? No. That's not what this is. I was going to maybe make a joke that the balloons were like, they've recovered it and it said like, Happy Birthday, Billy, and had a picture of Goofy from Disney on it. That might be why they're so tight-lipped, because it is really just nothing. Possible.
Yeah, that's certainly one theory. Let's get into it. You're the guy that's got the timeline. You had more time to research this than I did. Or I guess before we even get into it, what are we doing here? We're doing a special, very special episode to talk about these dang balloons.
Yeah, it's a Facts Schmacks special.
Balloon fever is sweeping the nation.
Absolutely.
When's the last time balloon fever like this took place, Kev?
Oh my God. You know what? Actually, this is how well prepared I am. I'm just not, you got ahead of me. Balloon Boy.
Oh, that's right.
Do you remember Balloon Boy?
There was a boy in a balloon.
No, technically there was not a balloon boy.
No, that's true. There wasn't.
That was a hoax.
We sure
October
thought there
15th,
was a
2009. So like the height of reality TV and, the early beginnings of YouTube and whatnot.
No such thing as bad kind of fame.
Yeah, where they launched the balloon, say the kid's in it. The whole time the kid's hiding in the attic. And then on Larry King Live, the kid goes, yeah, you guys told me to do this for the show. Like, as kids do, right?
You're right.
Totally just, throw you right under the bus.
Absolutely. I would not trust a kid to tell a high-stakes lie.
Definitely not on Larry King, right? Like,
no.
You're like, he shook up. He wanted to be here, but he just shook up. Speaking of shake up, this is weird. We're going to get into some theories after. We'll get into the schmacks after the facts, of course.
Yes.
So let's take a look at this timeline. So on February 4th, first object described by U.S. officials as a suspected Chinese spy balloon was first spotted by U.S. air defense system flying towards Alaska from the Bering Sea. Moved through Canada before dipping back into the U.S. and out off the coast of South Carolina, where it was shot down by a missile fired by an F-22 fighter aircraft about 6 miles off the coast of Myrtle Beach.
Now,
that's weird, right?
Yeah, to be clear, by the time they shot it down, it wasn't it was a confirmed Chinese suspected spy balloon.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I missed that part.
Yeah, so the Chinese have even, boy, I don't like the way I'm saying the Chinese. China has responded and said, that was definitely our balloon, but it was a
meteorological balloon that blew off course, which...
Yes.
Sure.
We'll go over that. I've got some stuff about that.
All right, so 10th of February, a second object described as being about the size of a small car was spotted off the spotted by NORAD, North American Aerospace Defense Command, near Alaska and downed on the 10th of February. The object was hovering at an altitude of around 40,000 feet. Now, it's important to note that the Chinese one was at approximately 60,000 feet, so considerably higher, and I believe considerably larger. It was not similar in shape or size to the balloon shot down off South Carolina. 2 U.S. F-22 warplanes were dispatched from Joint Base, I'm going to screw this name up, Elmendorf Richardson. Actually, it wasn't that bad. Near Anchorage, Alaska. The object was shot down over sea ice near Dead Horse, which is actually a super cool name.
That is, yeah.
Right? It's pretty badass.
It is pretty badass. I rode in from Dead Horse.
So, I mean, that's crazy. You kind of go like, oh, man, maybe they have a couple balloons. That's wild, right? Mm-hmm. February 11th, the next day, a third object, again unidentified, but described by U.S. officials as much smaller than the suspected spy balloon, was tracked entering U.S. airspace over Alaska before entering Canadian airspace. Canadian officials described the object, which was flying at an altitude of around 40,000 feet, as small and cylindrical, and that it posed a reasonable threat, which I think is how we describe your junk. I don't know. Maybe.
Now, let's be clear. When he's talking about posing a reasonable threat, he's talking about to air traffic, not to
No, yeah.
He's not talking about this thing's going to pull out its laser guns and start blasting.
No. It posed a reasonable threat to like civilian air traffic. I believe like a 747 cruises around 30,000, 40,000 feet.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, they've got like, if I understand this correctly, they've got different lanes. So you'd get, they don't want every vehicle traveling at the same height, right?
Feet. Yeah, for sure.
So So I don't know how low, where that extends to. But certainly they didn't want it there. The one at 60,000 feet didn't necessarily pose a threat, but they also don't know when it's
civilian
aviation.
Aviation. I'm pretty sure.
They're also pretty sure it was a spying.
100% spying. It didn't hover over like Montana over some launch sites or something.
Yeah, well, allegedly.
So again, F-22s tracked the object, while some F-18s and CP-140 maritime patrol craft also joined the operation. The object was shot down by the U.S. F-22 over a central area of Canada's Yukon territory on the orders of Mr. Trudeau.
F-22 pilots just having themselves a week.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're having some... I feel like this is like some of the only stuff that they've shot down in the air.
Oh, yeah, they're so excited about this.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of memes where it's just like... it shows like the F-4 Phantom. It's like got like 600 kills, and then it's like the F-22. It's like, I shot a balloon. We can hang, right? Funny enough, this is the first instance of NORAD downing an object in Canadian airspace, according to Defense Minister Anita Anand. So,
I believe that.
I can't think of any time this ever happened. Like during the Cold War, they would have, Russian jets coming over across the Bering Strait at the north there. And they would I think they would test airspace, and there was some encounters. There was some not interventions. What's the word I'm looking for here, my friend?
Like a sortie.
A sortie. Yeah. There'd be a couple of, where they'd fly up there and, maybe go home now.
Yeah, get right up close to...
Do the old Top Gun.
Yeah, make him real nervous and then...
Give him a finger. Show him that you have superior piloting skills.
Turns out you could not do that because apparently slipstreams are a thing.
Yeah, also for that to work inside of that frame, the tail fins would have collided on those aircraft.
That's also true.
Yeah, probably wouldn't have gone over too well. So anyhow...
Not.
Crazy, right? 2 things shot down over North American airspace. Unprecedented times, as we've been in for a while now.
Yep.
12th of February. You know what I'm saying? Oh, wait, are we at 3 now? 2, 3. God damn it. This is why our show never attracts too many listeners.
I think that was the 3rd.
Yeah, okay. So anyhow, 12th of February, Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday, U.S. officials confirmed another object had been shot down by fighter jets over Lake Huron, which that's our backyard, dude.
That is. Actually,
we're going to get to that. I want to discuss something about that. So we'll just get the facts out and then we'll talk. So on Sunday, U.S. officials confirmed another unidentified object being shot down by fighter jets over Lake Huron on the U.S.-Canada border near Michigan. This time, the object was flying at a considerably lower altitude. Wow, words. About 20,000 feet. It was shot down by an F-16 jet on the orders of President Biden out of concerns that it was, at an altitude that could pose a threat to civilian aviation. A senior U.S. official speaking anonymously described the latest object as having an octagonal structure with strings hanging off but no discernible payload. So I think that there was 3 that had a payload, 1 didn't, if I recall correctly.
As far as I understand, yeah.
Yeah, so the Pentagon said, based on its flight path and data, we can connect this object to a radar signal picked up over Montana, which flew in proximity to sensitive Department of Defense sites. From what I understand, these are nuclear launch sites in Montana. In-ground missile silos.
Minutemen.
Yep. So they didn't assess that there was any kind of military threat to anything on the ground, but it was a flight risk. So they didn't know these last 3 objects. They don't really know. They say they may or may not be tied to these Chinese things, but it's kind of sounding like no. The Chinese spy balloon was a thing, and then these other 3 things are different. They're referring to them as objects, not balloons, and they have ruled out any explanation as of now. So we're recording this on the 13th of February. So this is really hot after these have happened. And we're just going to start wildly speculating and having a lot of fun with this.
Before we do that, I want to talk about that first balloon a little bit. So the first balloon, the Chinese government did take ownership of that. Now, they positioned it as being... the way they phrased their response to it being blown up made it seem like it was a private balloon that was being used for, in their words, mostly meteorological purposes. Now, the reason they might have phrased it that way and said it that way is there's this thing called the Chicago Convention, which governs things like weather balloons or hot air balloons, or really just like air travel over other countries.
I started looking into this because I was curious what the aviation rules were. Like, can you just release a balloon as a private citizen? There are some rules, like it can't be over 500 feet or under 500 feet of cloud cover and all this stuff.
Yeah, there are rules around now, like theoretically. So from what I understood, theoretically, the balloon at 60,000 feet might have been okay, but the types for it to have qualified as a weather balloon, it would have had to have been used for weather balloon purposes 100% of the time, not just some of the time or most of the time. And it would have to be, it's something like the payload has to be like under 10 kilograms. And apparently this thing was the size of 3 buses. You have to think the payload's more than 10 kilograms. So
10 kilograms.
In terms of the Chicago Convention, it probably doesn't qualify. There was something called the Open Skies Convention that the U.S. was a party to, which basically would have made this sort of thing okay. Like, it's okay to have surveillance balloons and satellites and stuff like that. But China never signed on to that, and Trump pulled the U.S. out of it a few years ago. So in terms of, China raised a big stink about them shooting down this balloon. But in terms of the legality of it, the U.S. is probably, in the clear, at least according to some JAG that I listened to on YouTube.
Being
a JAG
Judge Advocate General.
Yeah. Military lawyer.
Navy lawyer,
sorry.
Yeah. So this one that was shot down, they're saying the debris field is like 15 football fields by 15 football fields with a depth of around 50 feet, according to a NORAD commander. It's kind of crazy. So, yeah, the first one was shot down. Then the remaining 3, they say didn't have a payload.
Yeah. There might be... So... From what I understand, now I might be wrong, but I was looking into how you shoot down something at 60,000 feet. So from what I understand, they are not really able to lock on to something at 60,000 feet. I think they had to kind of manually aim it and just detonate it close enough.
Sure.
But the stuff that's flying under that, they might have been able to lock onto it and essentially blow them up more, if that makes sense. A more direct hit. So there might be a reason why it's a little less obvious what the last three were.
I want to discuss like one thing when you said like 10 kilo payload. Imagine just like, so that's about, roughly 20, 25 pounds.
Yeah.
Just imagine a 25, like basically a dumbbell.
Falling from the sky.
Falling from 60,000 feet.
Yeah.
God damn it.
It might be lighter than that. It might be like 2 kilograms. I heard the number and I was like, it was under 10 anyways.
Yeah. So I find this all very crazy. I want to tell you, first I want to ask you a question, then I want to tell you a story.
Okay. Before you do that,
further. Okay.
Should we just put the aliens thing on the table now?
No.
Okay, you want to save it?
It ties in.
Okay. All right. What do you got for me?
All right. So, first of all, God, do I want to tell you the story first or ask the question first?
Seems like the sort of thing you should have figured out before you did the show,
Before
Numbskull?
Before I prefaced it. Okay. So where this one was shot down over Lake Huron is right near where your cottage is.
Yeah.
It's just off the coast of where your cottage is, off the coast of Tobermory.
Yeah.
I was just up there camping in October. Love that place. We have been high as fuck on mushrooms sitting in the back of that cottage on a couple occasions. I want to ask you, what is the state of your mental health when you see a goddamn detonation in the sky? Like you see a jet streak overhead and then boom in the distance. Like you're high on mushrooms. You're just sitting there. You're thinking about life and nature and spiritual things and all these great things that happen when you do this. And then all of a sudden a jet comes and you're not hallucinating because everybody else saw it. What's the state of your mental health at that point?
I think at that point, you wouldn't be able to convince me that it really happened.
What if all of us saw it? You saw it. I saw it. Our friends saw it. Everybody
I think in the moment I'd believe it. And then I think when I got sober, I'd be like, yeah, that didn't happen. Like in the absence of the news and like imagining this is like 100 years ago or something. Well, it wouldn't be 100 years ago. Imagine this is 20 years ago, before cell phones and the internet on all the time, and you wouldn't be able to just hear right away that something was blown up over Lake Huron. So I'm putting myself in that scenario. I'm waking up the next morning. Maybe at the time, believe it the next morning. I'm like, yeah, there's no way. I don't know. We talked about it and we imagined it or something. I don't know. I probably wouldn't believe it.
I would lose my mind. I'd lose my mind. I would.
Luckily, there's probably not too many people up there right now doing shrooms and just hanging out outside.
Yeah, true. It's a little chilly. Actually, it was pretty nice yesterday, which brings me to my story.
Oh.
And this story has a weird twist at the end that I'm going to tell you, and you're not going to believe. You're not going to believe it for 1 second. I wouldn't believe it. I wouldn't blame you for 1 second. Excuse me. We're outside.
Kevin, we got fancy cough buttons for a reason.
I know. I always forget about it. We're outside. Tonight it's unseasonably warm. And we've been talking about this. Lake Huron is our backyard. It's like they just shot this thing down like drivable distance from my house. I wouldn't even have to stop for gas. And I'm like, so we've been talking about it and it's nighttime. She steps off the porch, looks up because we've been now all this talk about balloons, you're kind of looking up thinking, man, what if, and she goes, what the hell is that? That's not normal. And I'm, in hindsight, I'm surprised I actually like just believed it because I thought, haha, made you look, right?
Yeah.
But I bit and I stepped off the porch and I looked up and what I saw made my blood run cold. I looked up and I saw this string of lights in a straight line all across the sky, like dozens and dozens of lights. And
That's
I was
Starlink,
like,
isn't it?
God damn it. But okay, so here's the thing. I do like some astrophotography. I know the sky pretty good. I know like constellations and planets and comets. I've seen meteors. I've seen Starlink. I've seen satellites, the space. I've seen all that. But this was a Starlink launch, which is different. Usually Starlink's like 7 or 8. You're like, oh, that's Starlink. This was a launch. It was like a string of like 50, like 50 satellites. But because of everything that's going on, the initial thought that I had was nukes or alien invasion. I just looked up and was like, what the hell is that? That is not natural. So like, kind of crazy, right? You want to hear what I think makes this crazy?
Okay.
Because of all the stuff that's been going on, I woke up yesterday morning and I said to Sid, I was like, I had this weird dream where I looked up in the sky and I saw a star, and that star started shooting out other stars until there was like this big line of stars. And then in my dream, I thought it was like a nuclear attack.
Maybe because we did an episode about, we were talking about MIRVs.
MIRVs, yeah. And so I had that dream the night before. And then when we saw it, I was like, oh my God, that's exactly what I dreamed about. It was the weirdest, just the weirdest coincidence, man. So now I've been wandering around the house trying to convince her that I'm like Miss Cleo. Like the clairvoyance.
You're more like, did you ever see? No, of course you didn't, because you don't like comedy. There was this SNL skit with Christopher Walken. It was Ed Glosser, Trivial Psychic, and he'd touch somebody. It was right after he did The Dead Zone, so he'd been a movie about being a psychic, and that was kind of his. That was the premise. He'd touch people and he'd throw his head back and be like, "Tomorrow, you gotta get a coffee. You gotta get your cab. You gotta put coffee on the roof of the cab.
Yeah,
you gotta drive away."
The most basic of things. That's awesome. I should totally.
There's still time.
This might become my new shtick now. I'm gonna be testing this out. I thought it was so weird, and I was like, man, with everything going on, when I looked up, I was like, oh, like what, like, because it's not a natural thing, right? If you've ever seen a Starlink launch, it's cool looking. It was really cool to see. I'm glad we saw it. Like the chances of seeing it were very slim. We just happened to see it. It was super cool.
Yeah, I think it's also a good lesson in I know my house pretty well. I know all the things in my house pretty well. Every once in a while, the things in my house will end up in a configuration where when I look at them for a split second, the blanket and the hoodie that are sitting on the couch are a person for a split second, because my brain's trying to make sense of the chaos.
Sure.
Even when there's things that you're in an environment that you know very well, your brain can very easily be tricked into seeing things and ascribing eerie significance to anything. Any thing.
For sure. Like I said, man, like literally, physiologically, I felt my blood chill when I looked up, because I was like, what? And then it was gone, and you're like, with everything going on, and there was actually a Starlink launch yesterday. Yeah. And I was just like, after about 10 minutes, we figured out, thanks to the internet, that it is a Starlink launch, and we're not under attack, and there may or may not be aliens, which is kind of what we're here for, because what I want to believe. And with all the U.A.P. stuff, U.F.O. stuff that they've been talking about over the last 2-3 years.
You mean the same press release that just keeps getting recycled because
that's the one.
The guy from Tom DeLonge is really, really good at getting press.
To the Stars Academy, with Tom DeLonge. And some filmmakers.
And some government money.
Let's talk about it.
I don't have enough about that specifically, but he's partners with the guy who was in deep with Harry Reid. Harry Reid was a true believer in that stuff. So Harry Reid wasted a bunch of government money trying to, or in my opinion, wasted a bunch of money trying to prove aliens were real, and the best he got out of it was a couple press releases that they keep recycling.
let's talk about what these things are. I want to think that there's some alien shit getting shot down. Of course, I know that that's kind of illogical. Are these
if you
remnants from the Cincinnati balloon disaster? For those of you who don't know what the Cincinnati balloon disaster is, they released a bunch of balloons at Balloon Fest 1986, Cincinnati, Ohio.
Listen to our old episode.
Mess. We got an episode on it. It's good times. Roswell also balloons. I'm seeing a connection here. They're telling us now it's balloons or not balloons. It's getting confusing.
Yeah.
They've always been tied to UFOs. Let's talk.
Okay, so right after, so first of all, let's picture this, right?
Okay.
Paint
me a picture.
You're a hyper advanced alien civilization. You're Zeta Reticulans, let's say.
Okay.
You could make it all the way here. Surely you've got something better up your sleeve than balloons.
But they're not, now the 3 that were shot down, they're not calling them balloons per se. They're not
calling them anything.
Balloons.
Yeah.
Octagonal shape, no visible sense of propulsion. I want to know how
it's a kite.
It's a box kite.
That's what I was thinking.
So I'm wondering too, and I'm wondering because they're kind of tight-lipped on some of this stuff and so it's fueling the speculation where people are jackasses like me who just want to believe, even though I know that it's probably nothing. I go, oh, maybe it's aliens.
Yeah,
and it's fueling it because there's no straight answer. But I'm scared that maybe the straight answer is just we overtuned our radar and we're picking up that balloon you let go of as a child and floated away that you cried about. Now we're shooting it down with AIM-9 missiles from F-22 Raptors.
I have a theory about what's going on here.
What's that?
That accounts for at least 3 of them. So right after the Americans shot down the first one, China released a statement saying they're very mad. They also quietly acknowledged that they've got another balloon. They had another balloon over Latin America.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I meant to mention that too.
So there's at least 2 balloons that they've taken ownership of. My theory is that all of these are Chinese surveillance balloons, but the U.S. military isn't going to say that that's what they've done or that that's what they are as a sort of
saving face
for both parties. We're going to shoot these things down. We're going to say we have no idea what they are. Who knows? And we're going to stop doing the balloon thing.
Dude, the conspiracy theories are just going to go mad. People, we're already, I'm already ready to make them. I'm ready.
Well, don't be that guy.
I can't help it though, man. This is a really it's just weird. There's never really been, to my knowledge, anything shot down over.
It hasn't been anything shot down, but it sure seems like sending balloons over other people's territories is something that people have been doing for a long time.
If you think about it, that first one they sent over, it's kind of smart because it's a hell of a lot cheaper than a satellite or a super high airplane. The airplane would have to be manned.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
cheap.
That's what I'm getting at. You can send over a UAV, but at that height, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like I'll send over a balloon. If it gets shot down, egg on my face.
I think there's 2 things happening here.
Oh.
The first is that they want to take the temperature down on this whole China thing. China maybe quietly admits to them, there's a couple more you're going to be seeing.
Yeah.
Because apparently there was 3 that flew over during the Trump administration, and China just said today that apparently the Americans have flown 10 balloons over China recently. So I think what's happened Yeah, I think what's happened is there's been an understanding reached where they're going to take out the rest of them. They're not going to make any public statements blaming anybody or turning up the temperature on it. They're just going to take care of them as quietly as they can. They're going to, if I was trying to do that, people chattering about UFOs is probably good for me, for my aims and what I'm trying to accomplish. So I think they're not fueling that talk, but they're not necessarily not fueling it. There was the one general yesterday who said he wasn't going to rule anything out when asked if it was extraterrestrial, right?
Love that.
Then today they had to walk that back, right? I think that was just him being like, trying to seem extra serious, like, nothing's off the table, and not like a serious statement of, oh, maybe.
So you don't think that these tie into the UAPs, that like the David Fravor UAP from 2004, I think. Some of those, the Tic Tac and the gimbal and all those videos that were released in 2020.
No.
Come on.
The video's called gimbal because whoever first looked at it went, oh, this is a problem with the gimbal. That's what happens when a gimbal tries to focus on a target that's moving away.
I don't think so.
Yeah. Actually, a guy was able to completely recreate it in his garage.
What?
Yeah.
Send me the link.
I will.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
I want to see how well this ages.
And again, if I developed a weapon system that was that expensive, I'd want people to think that maybe it was having trouble tracking an alien and not it was getting freaked out by a 747 flying away from it.
Okay. I want to see how your theory ages. However, I also want to be on record saying that I, for one, welcome our new overlords.
I also think there's another thing that's happening right now.
What's that?
This is a conspiracy that I do believe in. It's not a grand conspiracy. It's not an overt conspiracy. It's the sort of banal conspiracy that happens all the time. But I think the government is probably perfectly happy if the media is talking about potential UFOs instead of whatever the hell's going on in East Palestine, Ohio right now.
The train derailment.
Which turned into a toxic cloud that rained down on the environment.
Yeah, they had vinyl chloride and all that kind of, like, that's some nasty shit, dude.
Yeah, and nobody's talking about that. Everybody's talking about spooky stuff in the sky.
I heard that
that serves the interests of a lot of people.
They were telling people, like, evacuate, or they'd basically arrest them and drag them out of their house. Like, but
right, they didn't tell them how long they were supposed to evacuate for.
As somebody who has worked in like refineries and chemical plants and stuff, like, you do not want a lot of that shit. Like, some of that shit will kill you. Like, hydrogen sulfide will kill you at like 10 or 15 parts per million. You're dead. You don't even smell it. You don't taste it. You just drop.
Oh, or like fluorine's really awful for that too.
Fluorine, chloride, chlorine. Like, it's all.
Isn't it just stuff with "ine" on the end of it's generally not good?
Oh my god! And I'm not definitely not a chemist, but it's just there's so much bad shit, and transporting this stuff by rail it's cheap, but the cost when it happens, it's like you don't have one tanker truck that blows up on a highway or releases shit on a highway. You have like. Some of those, like some of the rail cars I see, there's got to be 100 cars on that damn thing.
Oh, there's a mile-long train, right?
Yeah. Like, that's a lot of shit.
Yeah, there was I think the union is alleging that there was some safety concerns that were being not listened to. I don't want to say too much because that could be something that could be a very live litigation issue, and I really don't want to speak in an uninformed manner.
Also,
about
this
that
show
sort of thing.
This show is kind of ballooning up into something that's not supposed to be.
That's right.
Just a couple of donkeys full of hot air.
The one over Lake Huron, I could totally believe that that's just some practical joke or some sort of improvised device.
Yeah.
To get up that high. I mean, people. You could do that if you knew what you were doing.
Yeah. It's weird. It's definitely like unprecedented times as we've been in. Actually, speaking of that saying, I'm pretty sure any time is unprecedented. That's kind of the point.
Yes. I have a feeling this will turn out to be a lot more like the Battle of Los Angeles, the actual event, than the Battle of Los Angeles, the movie.
All right. Well, I mean, we'll see what happens. I guess maybe we'll revisit this if there's more. And I mean, for me, I hope to God it's not aliens, and I also hope it is aliens, because I just want to believe, dude.
Again, I'm pretty sure they'd have something better. Like, they'd have something that couldn't get shot down by an F-22. As nice planes as those are, apparently they're pretty sweet. I don't know.
Well, and I think it's the issue.
Some people
too,
say the F-15's better. I don't know. I'm not a plane guy.
How many times in history was it like, oh, there's a UFO, and they're like, oh, it's just a weather balloon. Like, they never really seem to care. Oh, it's just a balloon. It's a weather balloon. No big deal. Like, balloons have largely throughout aviation history been, it's just a balloon, right? They let these things go. Like, look at Roswell. It was just a balloon, guys. No big deal. Well, now all of a sudden they're like, oh, that balloon's like full of spy gear.
Buddy, we did an episode on Roswell. It was a government balloon. They knew exactly what it was. It was part of a secret project.
That's what I'm saying. But like, now all of a sudden they've got their radars all tweaked. They've changed the gain on the radar, and they're looking at these small cross-section pings, and they're starting to scrutinize them more. So we're gonna start seeing these, like the thing that Buddy made in his garage that went to 20,000 feet and flew away. We're gonna start seeing more of these kind of getting hit, I think.
I have a different read, because correct me if I'm wrong, but this thing was reported on by civilians in the media before the military said anything about it, right? I think it was people saw it because it was so big.
But that's the thing. So if you're flying these, if this is kind of a standard practice, why are we only hearing about it now?
Well, or did China fuck up and build one of these things too big? And then now the U.S. is like, well, now we got to fucking do something about it. And we got to seem like we are doing something about it.
Yeah, maybe.
I think from what I understand, this came out as civilians are tracking this thing, and then the military had to quietly be like, oh yeah, I mean, we know about this thing. Of course, we've been tracking it since it, entered airspace. And then I think the media fever built up, and they finally had to be like, well, all right, we got to go blow this thing up, because otherwise we're going to seem like we're doing nothing.
That's a logical theory. There's also theories that these things are being sent out there to test capabilities of not only capabilities, but like responses. Like, how will they react?
Yeah, I personally think this is something that they've been doing for a while, and just they fucked up and civilians caught on, and oh shit, now we gotta pretend like we're outraged about this.
Yeah.
I don't think they've got satellites. Like, the benefit of a balloon is it can hang out over a spot for a long time. It's not blocked by the atmosphere, and it's cheap. Those are all really nice stuff, but I don't think the U.S. was particularly concerned about the intelligence that they were gathering in the satellite era. I have a hard time believing that they were really alarmed about that.
And that's the other, like, it's pretty clear, and I think it's been, if it's not known, it's at least speculated that they have satellites kind of hanging out over the U.S. collecting information. So if they already have that, why the balloon? Is the balloon here to collect something different, like signals intel, like where they're picking up more radio communications? What do you think is gained from a balloon that you can't get from a satellite that you can't get from somebody on the ground?
I think if they were trying to pick up like communication signals, they could probably get closer to than 60,000 feet to wherever they were going through like just conventional spying.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you could just have a guy with an antenna on his, like, not, you know, maybe not an antenna on his car, but you know what I mean? Like, I don't think any radio signal can only be detected up at the stratosphere. So, like, what is...
I think it's an intersection of plausible deniability, the potential of getting a closer look than maybe we could get with a satellite, the ability to park it there, you know, over a longer period of time, maybe, you know, observe movements or things like that. And then it's cheap. You lose it, you've lost a balloon. No biggie.
How do you navigate a balloon, do you think? Like, how do you... A balloon would be kind of basically sailing in the air currents, would it not?
I don't know. I'm sure there's a way to do it, like a can of CO2 and a nozzle.
Like
really?
Like a propulsion system, like on the...
Yeah, you could have some sort of rudimentary... Now, I had heard that this thing, the first one, they said, it made
Allegedly.
a maneuver, but the Chinese government said it had very limited maneuvering capability. They said it got caught by the westerlies or some wind current and pushed over the U.S. They didn't intend for it to go there. That's what they were saying.
I thought I'd heard that the prevailing winds in North America are west to east.
Yeah.
So the prevailing wind caught it and dragged it over the U.S.
I think that's what they're trying to say.
Yeah. Shady. It's definitely shady.
There's something going on there. I just think
that's what I'm saying. Like, that's kind of the question for me about that one is like, what are they gaining with this balloon that they're not getting from classic kind of spy methods? It's weird, man. It's just weird.
I think you throw everything at the wall.
I've never heard of a spy balloon. Like, short of like the First World War.
Oh no, spy balloons have been a thing for a long time.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you look at
Well, I mean, for example, the Roswell balloon that we were talking about, that was a spy balloon.
Right.
Yeah. So at least going back to the 60s.
I
know it seems like anachronistic because, you know, who uses balloons for anything, but if you're trying to get something unmanned into the atmosphere and you're trying to get it really high up, that's just still your best option as far as I know.
Yeah, I guess. Definitely your cheapest, I would say.
Yeah.
Well...
Oh, yeah. I mean, short of like an SR... a Blackbird, was it SR-72?
The SR-71 was fast. Yeah. The U-2 was high.
Right.
Yeah, the Blackbird was high, then the U-2 was... Or the U-2 was high, the Blackbird was fast.
Right. The Blackbird was the one where
they figured
the
it could
fuselage
run the missiles.
Yeah, and the fuselage would bend while it was in the air, so it would leak while it was on the ground. Yeah,
so because of the friction, the heat would cause expansion of the panels, so it would basically piss fuel on the ground.
So it'd have to refuel as soon as it got in the air.
Isn't that wild? Like, some of the engineering feats that made some of these planes. I've always been a huge aviation nerd.
Yeah.
So, like, it just...
This is way outside the purview. I was reading about... I was watching a video... I say reading, but I was learning about a plan in the 60s and 70s. The U.S. was trying to have airborne aircraft carriers.
That's badass.
Like retrofit a 747 to have a bunch of smaller fighters inside of it that would...
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Why haven't we done that?
It was a pretty difficult engineering problem. At first, they couldn't dock. The slipstream was too hard to dock. Then after they started, pilots got good at refueling in the air with that, thing there. They tried to modify one of those to like catch a plane. But I think it still was just too much could go wrong.
Yeah. I feel like you could probably launch it easier than you could land on it.
Yeah. I think launching a plane from a plane was no problem.
Yeah. Well, they do it. They did it with the when they broke the sound barrier, they dropped the X1 off of I think a B-52 or something. And then
or
Yeah. Well, there you go. Anyhow, I want to revisit this on our next episode, which will be coming out in about 2-3 weeks.
Yeah.
Technically,
we've got one
our-
that's going to probably drop right after this one.
Yeah, actually, our next episode chronologically in releases will be The Man Who Fell to Earth, not from a balloon, but from a plane.
Yeah.
And
Very excited
then
about that
whatever
one.
episode after that, I'd like to circle back to this and just see what happens in the coming, week or so between now and when we record and revisit this somewhere in that episode, maybe a little early or a little after the main story.
Yeah.
Sound good?
Yeah. All right. Happy balloon days.
Hey,
It's
listen,
a boy.
if the aliens come, I'll ask them for mercy for you, but I can't guarantee anything, but I will do my best for you.
I don't think they're like God, where if you don't believe in them, they get mad.
No, they do. Well, hey, what was that AI thing? And if you didn't help build it, it would torture you to death?
Roko's basilisk.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like that, I think. They're watching, they're making a list. They're checking it twice. I know which one, I know which one when I'm on there, so you just
But that's silly
tread lightly.
because that says nothing about how subservient I could be and just whether or not I believe it's likely that they're here.
I don't know, man. I just err on the side of caution and welcome them.
That's why you've got tattoos of every major religion on your buttocks.
Just in case.
Just
All
in
right.
case.
Well, thanks for listening, folks.
Keep them
Thanks for
close to
listening
your
this
shirt.
Wildly speculate. And we're out. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Fact Schmacks.
We hope you enjoyed our show. If you want to hear more, be sure to check us out on Patreon at patreon.com/factschmacks.
Or you can check us out on Facebook or on YouTube or on twitter.com@FactSchmackedPod.
We also have a website, factschmacks.xyz, because we know you haven't had enough yet.
Sure.